Kyle here from All Media Reviews to continue on into the vinyl collection A to Z. Now we're on part 2 of the letter R. This is number 27, I think. Vinyl. So, all right, I have what is sort of a hybrid because I took some liberties with combining some artists and none. So we've come to Return to Forever. So. And it's Chick Corea, so I've got, I mean, I could be putting this in the C's, I guess, but it's kind of, you know, you go back and forth, why does it really matter much? So I've got the titled album, Chick Return to Forever. I believe this is with, it just had Joe Farrell, who's a flute player, and then Erdo Morera, if I'm saying that, he was the drummer. But it did have Stanley Clarke. This came out in 72. I mean, it was only like a year or two after he had stopped playing with Miles, I think. I don't think he was with Miles Davis at this point. His wife, Flora Perm, does some vocals. I know because there's some Return to Forever. This is lighter, the more acoustic-y, you know, wasn't as electric, even though what they're doing with Miles, that was kind of the start of it. So then I've got Light as a Feather, which I think was the next year, was 70. No, this is the same year, actually. I don't know, see, these may be out of order. I don't know which one came out first, but similar, but then, you know, Chick Corea and Return to Forever. It's like, you know, Chick Corea, album Return to Forever, Chick Corea, and Return to Forever. But this came out in 72. No, it says 73 here. So I see two different dates. Maybe this was pressed on Polydor in 73 anyway. It says 500 miles high in Spain. I didn't even go over the track list on the title album. There's a song called Return to Forever, you know, on there, but I've spent not that much time with it. I've listened to some of this stuff. 500 Miles High and Spain are the two of my favorite. I think Spain is like a jazz standard though, but his version is great. So that was 72 also. So then I have, of course, I don't think this is the first album with him, but I could be wrong. Again, you know, I love Return to Forever, but I can't claim to know their history ins and out. I only know a modicum of amount of the history. But this is, and it turns out I have 2 copies. I don't know why, again, in case I didn't know what I owned. One I paid a couple more dollars for, but, of him and the Seventh Galaxy. This was with Bill Connors. You know, so Stanley Clarke, of course, and Lenny White had then joined, and this is, I don't know if this is considered the Return to Forever debut album. I think it is. Because it's like the whole thing with Chick Corea, Return to Forever. Was that the Return to Forever debut? Or, you know, Light as a Feather? What was the debut? I mean, this is sort of the official Return to Forever by name. Of course, there was the Stanley Clarke Children of Forever album, too. But, yeah, this was 73 also. So, but yeah, this is a lot of people love this record. People that prefer Bill Connors. Captain Senior Mouse is a favorite. The title track. I haven't listened to this in a long time, but, you know, I've always liked this album, you know. But anyway, in fact, I have 2 copies. One of those may be going in the contest, so I'm going to have, like, probably a dozen records in the contest down the road here. So I only have 1 copy of this, I believe. No, I have 2. No, I don't. Okay. I have Where Have I Known You Before, of course. The next 2 albums have a similar look. And this was 74, I think. And this is the first album with Al Di Meola. Includes Vulcan Worlds. That's probably the most known. And the title track. It's got like a reprise. It's like, yeah, no, Where Have I Loved You Before and Where Have I Known You Before. Where Have I Known You Before is only a 2-minute 9-second song, but the closing track, Song to the Pharaoh Kings. But yeah, Al Di Meola was like 19 when he was on this, but of course you had Stanley Clarke and Lenny White. You know, Bill Connors was the only one who had left. But yeah, great record, but they would go on to do even greater things, of course. So the next album, I believe, see again, yeah. Again, the chronology is, you know, not fully, but this is the album I believe is the next one. This is Return to Forever featuring Chick Corea. They kept on changing the name slightly, but this is No Mystery. And when I first got into them, this one I was almost thinking was my favorite. The title track and the Celebration Suite Part 1 and 2 are fantastic. Kind of reminds me of Kansas. There's some Kansas songs around the same time that sort of the keyboard arrangements. I mean, no, you know, Chick Corea had admitted being a fan of Yes, and, you know, Kansas and other stuff, but yeah. So yeah, this is the second album with Al Di Meola. Second album, the classic lineup, you could say, those 4, you know. They rivaled Yes. People said, you know, the Return to Forever lineup with Al Di Meola and once Al Di Meola joined, was sort of like the greatest set of 4 musicians in one ensemble, in the rock era at least, but it's jazz rock. So the same year, Chick released a solo album called The Leprechaun. See, again, this should have probably gone under C, but again, it's just such, it's too much thinking about this stuff. So the same year, that was 76. Okay. Again, but he put out The Leprechaun, which I know when he passed away a few years ago, I revisited some of this. The Leprechaun's Dreams, the closing track, which is 13 minutes. But yeah, I mean, I think this differs more, as this is more just solo, more acoustic than of course, the Return to Forever electric stuff that he did. But, and then, of course, that same year in 76, they put out what is considered, some ways, the definitive jazz rock or jazz fusion album, or at least one of them, if not the Romantic Warrior. And it totally lives up to that, reputation and all the praise that it gets. Every track is fantastic. The musicianship is tight. The production is pristine. It's basically jazz and rock music, kind of melding and molding at its finest. The compositions are just perfect. It's mind-blowing. You just listen to all the stuff that they were doing. And, music in some ways never got more technical. You could take tech death. These guys could play circles around the tech death music, as much as I love a lot of technical death metal. And this kind of is their crowning jewel. And it's a concept album. I know there aren't any lyrics, of course, but Medieval Overture, the title track, Sorceress, Majestic Dance. There's some funky stuff, some more bluesy stuff, and then it's just the dynamics and some of the bass lines from Stanley Clarke. You just don't know who's the best guy in the band. Is it Chick? Is it Stanley Clarke? Is it Al Di Meola, of course? Or is it Lenny White? I mean, this is where they kind of, I don't know who produced this record, if they just self-produced it themselves, but, whoever it was a genius. Anyway. So, that kind of is the end of, I've got a couple more Chick releases. Again, they probably should have gone under the C's, but again, I have Stanley Clarke, and I have Al Di Meola separately. I probably should have put them all in one thing, but I've got 2 more under his own. Something called Before Forever, which came out, I think, 78 actually, a couple years after it, but I can't even remember some of the songs. The Brain, which is a 10-minute, 4-second song. Sundance. Because I think after Romantic Warrior, they wanted to do other things. Kind of like what happened with Mahavishnu Orchestra. But I don't know if he wanted to dismiss entirely, because that was still... Jazz fusion was still a big deal in the mid to late 70s. But then I have the Mad Hatter, which came out in 78 also. Those came out 2 years, the same year they came out. Those both came out in 78, but both under Chick's name. The thing is, he's got probably north of like 70 albums or something, or maybe 30 or 40 solo albums. He's played with so many collaborations, Chick. He's a fantastic musician, highly influential. I mean, obviously, this one right here, the Mad Hatter, he's got Herbie Hancock on here, Gail Moran, which I think he might have been involved with her. I can't remember, but I know she was on a number of records. Joe Farrell came back, so he was working with a lot of people on this one. This one, again, the credit list doesn't, get that extensive. It talks about Miles Davis in the back, but anyway. So, all right, moving on, just because we're up against the clock a little bit. This is thinking of the Reign of Kindo in the last video, or one of the last few videos. This is the current keyboard player for the Reign of Kindo's solo album, Prime Mover, Rocco of the Snow. I like this. I remember liking it more initially, and then it kind of, it's a little homogenous, but it doesn't sound exactly like Kindo, though. It's more textured and more singer-songwriter, I guess you could say at times. It's like I have a box elder on the window. But yeah, I mean, I always think of course, the Rush song Prime Mover, which we're talking about Rush pretty soon here, of course. I sound like rhyme signatures. Jeff Jarvis from Reign of Kindo. A lot of the credits, people from Kindo ended up on here, but yeah, this came out in 2018. Anyway, if I'm in a Kindo mood, I would maybe put that on too. I follow him on Instagram and everything, and so I have one album from Linda Ronstadt. I'm not a massive Linda Ronstadt. My wife is. There's probably a lot of Linda Ronstadt stuff among these stacks right here, but I'm not getting into it. Of course, Linda Ronstadt, nearly everything she ever released was either not written for her, she did not write. It was written for her, or she covered, she adapted, and including of course when she was the Stone Ponies, Different Drum that Michael Nesmith wrote, But this album itself, which featuring Aaron Neville, won a Grammy. I know this for a couple songs. Try Like a Rainstorm, I think that's the one. But the one song that always brings me to tears is the song "Goodbye, My Friend," and I'll totally admit and confess where I first heard that song. I'm pretty sure it was on an episode of Baywatch. I mean, acting wasn't great on that show. A lot of eye candy, but you know, as a whatever young teen, early 20s, you know, Baywatch comes on, you watch it, and especially with the early seasons, there was an episode where one of the characters, spoiler alert, dies, and they play "Goodbye, My Friend." Then I also remember my cousin at his graduation ended up from high school, it's a couple years behind me. They did they played that song, or they sang that, the choir sang that song. I don't know, and it's just it's very sad and melancholy. It's up there with, you know, The Great Escape from Marillion, where I can't. I have a hard time, or even like Somewhere like Over the Rainbow. I can't help but feel really depressed and sad and go into tears when I hear it. And so, I don't know. I know that Carla Bonoff, I think, was originally one who recorded it. But anyway. So yeah, that's what I know this best for, and I had to get it, you know, paid $3.19. So, Linda Ronstadt. Alright, so moving along, I'm getting pretty close to the end here. I've got 3 records from this artist, I believe. And I probably at some point would like to get more. But, you know, do I have 2 of them in one case? That's what I did here. Yep. So I have, this is Josh Rouse. Josh Rouse, who is a singer-songwriter from Nebraska, who currently has dual citizenship in Nashville and in some part of Spain, where his wife is from. But these are these first two I've got here on my left and right. This is 1972, and then this is Nashville. He's a big favorite of my wife's. Like I never mentioned that once, but these are his kind of 2 definitive records. He has many other records. I have many of them on CDs. I've seen him live probably. You know, I've only known him since I know my wife. Probably at least 5, 6 times, 7 times maybe. But these are terrific records. He's written many good songs. They don't even have the I do here. This one has "Comeback Light Therapy" 1972. He was born in 72, is the title of the album, but that song is some of the funkiest. Everyone has to like that song. I mean, it's so groovy and upbeat. Waiting for the longest time. If you don't like that song, you know, I don't know. I mean, it's not prog, but it's got that infectious energy. Love Vibration, Sunshine Come On Late. There's a number of other songs I've seen him play live. So then this was his sort of probably peak record. This was in 2003, I think, 1972. Yep. But it came out in 2013 on Yep Rock, I believe. Nashville from 2005, and this had, although Joyce, my wife, always associates this with her experiences with her exes, or one ex. Winter at the Hamptons is an absolute banger. That's a terrific song. I get such good goosebumps. I mean, I think of my wife when I think of some of these songs, because this is her music, but a lot of the songs just work, and having seen them, see him play so many of them live. I know he did this whole thing at one of the lockdown, on Facebook stream. It was really cool to watch. You don't even have the track list on here, Josh, do you? I'd have to pull it out. But yeah, I mean, Nashville's a terrific record. Even people that aren't that big into him, I mean, you could say the Pitchfork scene. You know, he was kind of getting popular, and those people usually this is a go-to as well. But you know, again, I'm married to someone who's a massive fan, who knows the ins and outs of his catalog pretty damn well. He has other records that are great that maybe aren't better, but you know, and I have a bunch of them a few of them at least on CD. The one record that he's put out that I've really liked, and this is early in the time I got into, was the Happiness Waltz in 2013. Julie, Come Out of the Rain is a favorite. The title track, City People, City Things. I mean, you know, if you like Paul Simon, it's kind of in that vague, but he's got kind of a funky soul element to some of his songs. But some of his songs have Latin elements. I mean, he's changed styles. He put out a record about 5 years ago that was almost like electronic at points. But yeah, Happiness Waltz is probably the best record he's put out in the last 10 years for me. But a record he put out, Future something, I forget, was from 2019. Had a song called Salt and Sea I really liked. But Yeah, I've got my fill of Josh Strauss because I've seen him so many times live, and my wife, always will be listening to his stuff. So, all right, we have a couple left here. So I got the Roxette album, Look Sharp. R.I.P. Marie Fredriksson. Roxette was sort of a pop favorite of mine in the late 80s, early 90s. This has The Look, and what's the other one? There's one other hit on here. Listen to Your Heart, I think. Yes, the closing track. And I, for the longest time, meant to get this on both cassette and CD, and I never did. It's like, I should get this, because I always liked Roxette, they had like 4 hits, like 4 big hits, but I always liked her voice. Actually, I'll admit that there's probably a lot of the music I haven't heard. It might be like Aha or Duran Duran, where really the radio stuff is where I have fond, I'm drawn to, but this even has one of those punch holes, but I don't know what that means, it's out of print or whatever, but yeah, those 2 hits were just massive, and total nostalgia from hearing this stuff from when I was in junior high or grade school. So I got one more left on this second part of the R's. It's the Rubinoos. I believe this is the debut album from 78. Rubinoos. No, this is 83. I don't know if this is the debut album. Anyway, Rubinoos I know best because it's John Rubin's band. John Rubin is now the one who's the keeper or maintains Kevin Gilbert's estate. Not his parents, not his brothers or whatever, but Kevin Gilbert produced an album in the 90s with the Rubinoos. I bought it, and I'm not fond of it, unfortunately, but I do still have it on CD. This is, I have not listened to this. I just bought it, and I got it for $3. It's a mini LP, so it's not the longest. It's probably like 25 or 30 minutes. I should just give it a go. I want to say they're a little bit like Elvis Costello, but produced by Todd Rundgren, though. So it's kind of power pop-ish. Kevin described them as bubblegum pop. So he was like, I'm producing this bubblegum pop, but, it's worth picking up, I guess. Although if I listen to it a few times and just am not into it that much, like that other record I listened to from the 90s that Kevin Gilbert produced, maybe I won't keep it, but anyway. So that's it for the second part of the R's. Go on to the next, and I think it will be the last part, and I think it's pretty much one artist that most people know. But thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. If you did subscribe recently, thank you for that, and we'll see you next time.